Do you have exercise induced asthma? Do you know what it is? Do I know what it is? I think I have at least a minor case of it. Let's talk about that today. I'm Leslie Tadlock, and this is A Tad More Living, where together, hopefully, we can age with more helpful, youthful, active lifestyles. I am planning to live out the rest of my life being super active and doing all the things and experiencing all the things that I want to do. And it's a passion of mine to not let my physicality, my mental abilities, or my financial abilities to allow me to have that lifestyle. It is my passion and focus not to let those things lessen. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist in any way. Also not your judge. And so I need your feedback, want your feedback, all the questions, anything you want discussed. But if I mention something, it is from a layman's point of view. The only profession I have a license in is real estate. If you have a question about that, I can help you. But otherwise, this is just a discussion about things as from my point of view and from my understanding only. So I've always lived an active lifestyle, always. I danced growing up and didn't, not just a little. Like this was, it was a lot. I went from taking dancing lessons to teaching dancing lessons to being on dance team in school. And then after I graduated and then eventually got married, I helped a friend who had opened a dance studio teach classes. So that was always a part of my life. And during those periods of time, I did other active things. I've never been a sports person so much. No hand-eye coordination. But if you need a tap dancer, I'm your girl. But I'm saying that because I would try from time to time to be a runner, and I just never could. I would start, regardless of the conditions. I would hit what I would call now a wall really quickly. I would get completely out of breath, feel like I couldn't go on. And part of it was because I couldn't get a breath, a full breath. That was going away instead of increasing as my activity was increasing. And also at the same time as I was losing my ability to kind of breathe correctly, I'm breathing super hard and heavy. At the same time, the legs would feel really heavy and the arms even would feel heavy. And I would stop running, and every time I tried to be a runner, to try to run, this is what I faced. And so in my mind, I just wasn't a runner, wasn't ever going to be a runner. And there were times when I would try again. There were also, even many years later, there were times when I was in classes, like for instance, CrossFit. I got into CrossFit in my late 40s, and in CrossFit, often during the warm-up, there is a portion of that is running. And then as part of the workouts often include running. And I still thought I couldn't run. I would get so far, have to stop, catch my breath, and then maybe pick up in a minute or less than a minute, but a time later after I'd had an opportunity to catch my breath, then I could try to finish it. So two things were happening. One is that I had the misconception that a runner doesn't stop running. If you tell me, back up the clock, if you had told me that you went and ran 5 miles, in my mind, you started running and didn't stop running until you achieved 5 miles. That if I'm a runner, I can go run that distance, whatever the distance looks like. So that was a misconception, and I feel stupid even saying it out loud because maybe everybody else is going, why would you think you need to run the whole time? But that I thought if you couldn't run the whole time, you weren't able to run. See what I'm saying? And then the other thing that was happening was my misunderstanding of the body's ability to switch from anaerobic to aerobic. So if this is a new thought for you, let me just, as I understand it, let me kind of explain it the best way I know how. When your body is in its resting state, so as I am right now, this is anaerobic. I'm breathing normally. My breathing is adjusted for the activity, and there's very little activity. Even when you climb a flight of stairs, your breathing adjusts for that, but that's still your sort of resting state, unless you're climbing a lot at one time. But just kind of going up a small flight of stairs, you don't really switch over into aerobic state. Anaerobic is where your breath lies on a normal basis. So when you switch to aerobic, you start running or you start climbing a flight of stairs that doesn't stop, or a mountain, something that causes your heart rate to go up pretty much, and therefore your breath to go up pretty much, is you're switching from anaerobic to aerobic. That's why it's called aerobics, because it lifts the heart rate and the breathing rate up to an elevated level. Most people transition from anaerobic to aerobic with without noticing it so much. I mean, you're going to notice your breathing heavier, and you're going to notice your heart rate's gone up, you're working out, but your body transitions into that. As I understand it, if you have exercise-induced asthma, there is actually a medical condition that's exercise-induced bronchitis, and I think it's technically a little different. But this is just loosely phrased. Exercise-induced asthma is when your body has a really hard time transitioning from the anaerobic to the aerobic, and it can feel like your heart's going to burst out of your chest, and you're going to, I mean, I've had times when I felt like I was going to pass out because I'm just not getting the air in, and so then I need to stop whatever it is I'm doing and catch my breath. So I did not know that existed at first, years ago, when I was trying to become a runner. I didn't know what that was, and I didn't, being an active person my whole life, I didn't know that I didn't know it existed, and I certainly didn't know I had that problem. But I became aware of that at about the same time I became aware of the fact that you could stop running, walk a little bit, and start running again, and still call it a run. I think it was at age 50 or 51, one of my girlfriends, who was one of of my core best friends, one was a runner. She did half marathons, traveled, running, all that. The rest of us were very physically active without the running component. But somebody had the genius idea that we were going to all go on a destination run. It will be so much fun. We're going to go to Jacksonville Beach and run this half marathon. And it's in February. And this was, as I recall, like fall, late fall, early winter. And I've just been told that we're all going to spend a weekend in Jacksonville Beach, and we're running a half marathon. And I said, I don't run. And they said, that's fine. You can take pictures at the end. Well, I'm not going to tell you the word that came to mind first, but I did call them that word, and I said, no. If I have to walk the whole thing, I am not for a couple of hours waiting on you guys to go run, and I'll be ready with the camera when you get back. No, thank you. So it's time for me to figure out how I'm going to do this. So I did the same thing that almost everybody does. I went to Google and said, how do I become a runner? And I came across a gazillion methods. Couch potato to 5K is kind of the starting point that most people come across first. And I did that. I remember the first time I ran a 5K. Now, at this point, I still think you have to run the whole time. But part of the method that I came across that I decided to use to ramp up to a 5K said to go out, just go out your front door, if that's what it looks like, and plan to go 15 minutes away from your house and 15 minutes back. And to jog until you don't feel like you can, and then to walk a little bit, and then to jog and to walk. And when you get to the 15-minute point, then you do that same thing back home. And that's where we're going to start. And as you do this more and more times, you're going to increase the running portion. So I'm still thinking in my mind, our goal is to get to the point where we run the whole thing. I was missing the point that it didn't matter. No, but you got to spell things out. So I was working my way through that. And I remember the first time I got up, the same 4 girls got up and we met somewhere for a 5K. Now we're in the winter months because we're preparing for something that's coming up in February. And I remember it being really cold. And I ran the whole 5K. I mean, when I say ran, I'm slow, so I probably shouldn't use the word run. I should say jog, but it doesn't matter. I did the whole thing, and I was like on top of the world. There's nothing that feels better than a finished workout. And so I had done it. If I can do this, no matter how much I'm struggling during the process with breathing and feeling like I can't do it, if I can do it, I did it. I did this. So that means I can do more of it. So I got on the plan of working my way to a half marathon. And for those of you that have never done it, most of the methods or the plans are that you would have a 2-day-a-week run, say Tuesday and Thursday, you're doing about a 5K. So you go out and run about 3 miles on Tuesday and about 3 miles on Thursday. Then on the weekend, you do what's called the long run. You start out with the same 3 miles. And after a couple of weeks, I don't remember the timing exactly, but after a couple of weeks, you start adding distance. And depending on when your half marathon is and when you're starting, you've got to figure out, you got to do a little math and figure out how many miles you need to ramp up to and how fast. And as I recall, I needed to add a mile every single Saturday or Sunday, whatever the long run looked like. I needed to add that every single time. And now I was now fully mentally committed to this. I never did think I'm becoming a runner. I just thought I'm committing myself to learn how to run. I just pictured runners as people that it came naturally to and had kind of done it their whole lives. Maybe they ran track in school and they still run, and you see them going up and down the streets all the time. And like, to me, those were runners. I was learning to run. A little different to me in my mind, didn't matter. Now looking back on it, I know I should have just called myself a runner. Heck, I went out there and ran, right? But I still was of the mindset that I needed to, with the exception of needing to stop for a red light or traffic or take a sip of water, I needed to run the whole time. And my husband was doing it with me because, heck, I'm out there running and so he just trained with me, even though he wasn't going on this half marathon trip. And we got to mile 9, I think it was. Can remember doing 8 miles with no issue. But at mile 9, I didn't know what an IT band was prior to this, but my IT band in my left leg decided it wasn't going, or maybe it was the right leg. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But the IT band did whatever IT bands do to shut you down. I could walk just fine. I could even speed walk, but I could not run. Like it wasn't. It was done. An IT band is not like a knee problem that you have to have any kind of surgery for. The remedy for IT band is stretching and rest. Now, I had committed myself for the first time in my life to running. I was dedicated and devoted. I was all in. I was working through all the obstacles. And then for my knee to stop me made me mad. I couldn't even believe it. And I tried to let it rest and just finish the story on that half marathon. I didn't get to run it. I walked 4 miles out and 4 miles back. So I was like speed walking 8 miles while the other girls went and ran. So I didn't wait for them at the finish line. I did participate in the 5K. I mean, a half marathon to an extent. But what I learned was that when you hit that wall and you can't breathe, you stop running. You let your breath catch up and you start again. So that's how you kind of manage the issue of transitioning from anaerobic to aerobic state if you have that issue. I also found that it sometimes didn't happen at all, and sometimes happened sooner into the workout, and sometimes hung on, like it was much later, and then I'd hit it. So it wasn't always consistent, but I will remind you again that this was during the wintertime. And if you look up exercise induced asthma on your computer, just looked at my computer screen. If you look it up and look up the definition, most people suffer more in cold weather. I actually do better in cold weather. It hits me harder in warm weather. And so I trained for that half marathon in cold weather. And then once my knees started getting better into the warmer months after spring, I went back to running, and I really, really struggled. I kept doing it, but I was really struggling. Not with the knee, with the inability to breathe and push through and get it done. I was really struggling. And then the next winter starts to roll around, and we're still out running, and it's getting easier and easier and easier for me. So a little bit of it was that I was conditioning and getting better at running physically. All the parts, the lungs, the heart, the muscles, the joints, the ligaments, everything was getting stronger. But the other part of it was that I was starting to see the difference between doing it in a cold environment versus a hot environment. And I realized that I really do better physically in the colder environment. So this video is really for two things. One is to let you know that if you do feel like you can't run, you might actually be able to, but you just got to cut yourself some slack. Slow down, walk a few minutes, and then pick it back up. Go as far as you can and do it again. If you start running or doing anything, if you pass the starting line and pass the finish line, you did it, regardless of how you got there. You do not have to run the whole time. It doesn't have to be the prettiest show either. It can look really ugly, but nothing's ever going to feel better than that finished workout. So I encourage you to just try it. Again, I'm not a doctor. if you should not be out doing that, then you talk to your doctor, you listen to your body, and you do what's right. I just don't want anybody to not do something because they feel like they can't, when maybe they don't know why they feel like they can't. Maybe it's something completely different. Let me know. Let me know if you have questions. Um, I did discover along the way another running technique, I guess, that I would like to talk about. I just didn't want to make this video about that too. So I'll probably do another one. Um, and like I said, if you have any questions or just want to tell me I'm crazy, that's fine too. Just leave a comment. I hope you have a great day. Thanks.